The tampering period has started, and NFL free agency, the frenzy has begun. Couple names got traded today. Darren Waller to the New York Giants. Jimmy Garoppolo signs with the Raiders. Plenty of fantasy implications over the first couple days of free agency. We're about to break down some of our favorites on today's show. Before we do, make sure you want to follow us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. And of course, make sure you go to Razzball.com. We do baseball, hockey, basketball, and football. And I'm sure we'll be starting a bocce ball anytime in the near future. But today's show is the NFL free agent frenzy, day one reactions, starting right now. All right, I just feel like if you're going to bring somebody on and talk some free agency, it might as well be a Packers fan who has been waiting for the official news of Aaron. By the way, Packers East in New York will be exciting. Matthew Styles, you can follow him at Styles08 on Twitter. What's going on, Matt?
I'm here for the pickleball talk. Are we not?
We're doing bocce. We're on bocce now. We're on bocce. We're going to start up a new sport every week. That's awesome.
Maybe we get one of those the old-fashioned bubble hockey. We can do a bubble hockey tournament.
Yeah, I know. Gray even posted on Twitter that Razzball's looking into when they pickleball gets into the top 5.
Yep.
You know, I think we're all into it. I think everybody here at Razzball is ready for it to be on top of the next big thing, and we're super excited. But today's show, Matt, is the NFL free agency, instant reactions. Now, I told you before the show started, we're going to go by division. But before we even get started, first thought, reaction today. Give me your honest opinion, disappointment, excitement. What are you thinking?
Well, I think that you're right. The tampering period is officially open. I hope for the Giants' sake, right, to make their division a little more competitive. I hope Darren Waller can stay healthy. To me, that was the one that caught me off guard, right? You get a whole bunch of defensive line, offensive line, you get some maybe here, maybe there players. Nothing really moved the fantasy needle until the Waller trade. And I thought, well, does it make a difference? And it only makes a difference if he stays healthy. But, you know, you and I have talked about, and Sky and Derek, we talked about Daniel Bellinger kind of coming up and playing well during the end of the year. And big bodies, got decent hands, but I guess they're either going to go 2 tight end set or they're going to use Waller a little bit more like a receiver. Maybe Bellinger goes more back into a blocking role. I don't know. He's not Mercedes Lewis, right? So he's not a blocker. I think he's more of a pass catcher. But maybe they go back to try to do what New England did with Aaron Hernandez, rest in peace, and Gronkowski.
Yeah, and we'll get into all that with the NFC East. I just think that I don't want – there's a good start, but I don't want Waller to be my one. I want Waller to be a complement to an elite receiver. Like, I still want Hopkins. I still want him on my team. I want a Mike Evans type player. I want someone that's going to command big-time targets on the outside, and that's where I think Darren Waller would be the best. I mean, we've already seen Darren Waller forced into this de facto number 1 role, and he was great, but he wasn't a game changer. The Raiders were a dominant offense because of it. I think this is a good stepping stone, and I love the move. I mean, they traded Kadarius Toney for Darren Waller, and I think that's perfectly fine. We'll see how Toney does in Kansas City next year, but I still think that this is just step 1, and they really still need to go out and get that alpha number 1 receiver. Because listen, Isaiah Hodgins, great player. Sterling Shepard is back. Look at us already talking about the NFC East. I am all right. Might as well just get into it. I've already lost my shit. I'm already good. We're going to talk about the NFC East. I'm throwing we're pulling it audible. Let's talk about the NFC East. But yeah, they got Sterling Shepard back, which I love him as a player, but he can't stay healthy. And Isaiah Hodgins coming back, Barkley and Daniel Jones. I mean, they are still missing that piece. I think they still need to go one. Also, the Dallas Cowboys, and, you know, Tony Pollard's back. And the Zeke news is still kind of floating out there. Do they want to go get another receiver, but they have, like, the receiver market hasn't moved yet necessarily. I mean, Jacoby Myers, Alan Lazard, but they still have a couple moves they can make in the NFC East, like the Dallas Cowboys, but they brought Pollard back. I think the other underlying one here is Rashad Penny being signed by the Eagles.
Yeah, I didn't
it's
see
just
that
fun.
going.
It's just fun. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like Penny talk about a guy who can't stay healthy. But I mean, that 6 to 7 game stretch 2 years ago showed how explosive he is. And you put him on a team where they could essentially just say, we don't even need you to catch passes, just dominate on the ground. We have everything else taken care of with Jalen Hurts and company. I think he actually is a great fit there. Boston Scott coming back as well. Jason Kelsey. The Commanders haven't done much as of yet. I mean, we know for a fact they're going to have a new quarterback as Taylor Heineke signed elsewhere and Carson Wentz was released. So there's going to be a new starter there. But I guess what's your thoughts on the NFC East? Anything that stands out to you?
I wouldn't be shocked to see Miles Sanders go to Seattle, right? Like they almost traded those running backs because Seattle's going to need somebody with Kenneth Walker. But in the NFC East, I think that's a pretty, I don't know, here's the pun, right? It's a pretty fly backfield with those three guys in Philly. Sky's favorite, right? Kenneth Gainwell season. Let's see what he can do. Boston Scott signed for literally nothing. And now Penny, who can't stay healthy, but when he is, he's electric. But they don't need him to be an alpha dog. They don't need him to do anything but just kind of, when it's his time and he gets his carries, to just do his thing and gain positive yards. Because like you said, Hurts, and they've got those two outside receivers, and they've got a pretty significant tight end. So if they can shore up their defense a little bit, now they did lose. Not really fantasy related, but they lost Javon Hargrave, who walked. But they'll figure out a way to. I think they re-signed the cornerback. Name escapes me. Late today. Yeah, Bradbury. So, but yeah, I think Dallas restructured Gallup, which means they're probably looking for one more weapon. Apparently, they haven't even broached conversations with Dalton Schultz. Maybe they're trying to work out the Zeke situation before they get to Schultz. But I'd be interested to see, of course, everybody here, right where I live, it's Dallas Cowboys all the time. So with no news about Schultz, I'm a little bit concerned that maybe they're going to screw around and he's going to go somewhere else. We shall see.
Yeah, you know what? And I think early in the offseason, I was looking at him going somewhere else too. It just doesn't seem like the Cowboys have the market right now, the cap space in the want to go get Dalton. Because I do believe that Mike McCarthy's going to be bringing in. I think the offense is going to look a little different this year. I really do. And I think Mike McCarthy doesn't need to have Dalton Schultz. Like, I just don't. If you look at his history as a coordinator and a head coach with the Packers, like, he didn't have like a bunch of elite tight ends on his team. So I think they are trying to get more receivers, and I think that's where I think they're going to want to go next. For the Eagles, I think Rashad Penny, I would be really interested where he lands. I'm going to, like, in drafts, I mean, like, I honestly, like, he's like the kind of guy I would love to take in the 11th round and just say it's all upside. Now, granted, he could just hit a complete hype train really fast, which I totally understand. But and then with the Giants out being all over the place, right? I do love the fact they go out and get Darren Waller. But like I said before, I really do want the New York Giants to just not sit on their hands anymore. I think this is my one thing as a Giants fan, like Waller's injury history plus, like, yeah, I know Kelsey has done it, but like just when you have a tight end as your number one option in the passing game, very rarely does that mean you're an elite offense. So I would like to see them go out. We're gonna bring in Sky Gawasko here because we do have him on. What's up, Sky Gawasko? How you doing today, man? You're on mute. You're on mute. He's rusty. What's up, buddy? There it is.
Man, I have been in the bullpen for months, boys. I'm sorry.
And for the record, it's Sky Gawasko.
Sky Gawasko the third. That's right, folks. Hey, it's really great to be back. We'll save the pleasantries for another time. I know you guys are mid-rolling here. It's been exciting. Still have some big names to drop, but so far so good. It's a fun time of year.
All right, let's jump over to the AFC West. I do want to talk quickly about, so obviously the Broncos, they got Samaje Perine, which is a nice name. I got to remember, Javonte Williams is coming off a serious injury himself. Perine could be someone that is I don't want to say the taboo word 0 RB, but if you end up going light on RB early, he could be a great guy to get you started on the season. They went out and got one of your boys, Sky, Mike McGlinchey at right tackle.
Love it.
Brought in Ben Powers, 2 offensive guard, one of the top-rated guys. So beefing up that offensive line. They also got Jared Stidham. All right, look out, Russ. Look out, world. The Chiefs swap tackles, of course. We got to talk about your boy Jimmy G. Headed over to those Las Vegas Raiders, along with re-signing Josh Jacobs and having Jacoby Myers now on that team. After the Darren Waller trade, the Chargers, we are still waiting. What are you doing? What is going on? Austin Eckler, permission to seek a trade. Holy cow. Sky, thoughts about the AFC West? Anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the Broncos. I'm going to give it's not really fantasy relevant per se names wise, but it'll certainly impact the team in general. I want to give a shout out to the big boys. McGlinchey's definitely my dog from the Niners. I thought that was an absolute, I won't say a steal. He's not cheap, but certainly the top O-line pickup, I think, so far, and really a great addition to an offensive line. I'll save my renewed Russ trust for another episode later on this summer, but I'm feeling better about Russ as the days go by. I'll put it that way. I do think the Broncos are making some good moves. Maybe another running back. We'll see what happens with the draft, obviously. I'll touch on Jimmy G just because I feel obligated to do so. I've given him a lot of shade just because I'm a Niner fan, and I know he's, to non-Niner fans, Jimmy has been great. Super Bowl run, had another Super Bowl run. Who knows what would have happened this year if he stayed healthy again. We basically cut him loose, sent him out to pasture. He gave literally an exit speech to the media and everybody last year. And then Trey got hurt the next day. And we're like, you know what? Actually, Jimmy, why don't you stay here? And we're going to have our 5th string quarterback take us back to should have been the Super Bowl. Nonetheless, he did great for us. One stat that sticks out to me, though, that makes me kind of not love Jimmy G and not excited about my boy Devontae Adams, who I absolutely have the utmost love for no matter what, is Jimmy Garoppolo in the last 4 seasons while healthy. Number 1 out of all quarterbacks in yards after catch per completion. Yards after catch per completion. What does that mean? Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey now, George Kittle. Absolutely unbelievable with the ball in their hands after the reception. What it also means is that Jimmy Garoppolo does not put the ball on the field. Is that Shanahan? Maybe, but I don't think, they're not going to be doing that with the Raiders either. I think Derek Carr threw a couple bombs because he and Devontae could do that from back in the day, but that's not really the Patriot offense, if you will. So I just think Jimmy's a lateral move to Derek Carr. And honestly, if it was apples to apples, I'm taking Derek Carr personally. So I don't love the move. Jacoby Myers, though, I think is a sneak attack, late round pick, great talent. And if he can get some more work, obviously he and Jimmy are both familiar already with Josh McDaniels from their time with New England. So obviously that helps. And that's really a theme in free agency big time this year. But in general, the amount of players going to certain teams because there's a coach somewhere on the roster that they used to play with, and that kind of team, camaraderie we talk about, right? That continuity we always talk about, Bob, is massive, and it's thick this year again. So don't love the Raiders this year. We got to see a lot from the Broncos as well, but I think the Broncos improved, and I think the Raiders, while maybe getting some excitement in the media, I'm personally not. It didn't move the needle for me necessarily. And my favorite guy, Devontae Adams, I think actually got a downgrade, and I'll save my Josh Jacobs spiel for later this summer when I fade him again.
Now, what I heard about that Jimmy Garoppolo yards after the catch stuff, all I heard was he's just putting it on the numbers, like really good.
4 yards down the field, pass.
He's an expert,
Pass.
What about you, Matt? Any thoughts about the AFC West?
Well, I mean, Sky put a fork in the Raiders already. I'm okay with that. He's not necessarily killing Russ yet, but we'll talk about that, like he said, in the summer. So that leaves the Chiefs and the Chargers, and right now, to me, both are asleep at the wheel. Now, the Chiefs can be asleep at the wheel, right? Because Mahomes has proved to be Mahomes, whether we like him or not, or like his brother or not. And nobody does like his brother. But Herbert hasn't been Herbert. Shout out to the Ducks. So the Chiefs can afford, with Mahomes, the way he plays and the way he just kind of puts the team on his back, and the Travis Kelce situation where he's already in-house, they don't need to really do much. They just need to hone their tools as they tend to do each year. Maybe a signing like MVS will provide more benefit this year. So maybe our guy Sky Moore comes out of his shell a little bit. He caught his first touchdown in the Super Bowl. By the way, go back and look at what that prop bet was. Insane, and it hit. Couple that with the fact that the Chargers are now looking at their running back that wants to walk out the door unless they pay him, and I guess the trade or the contract talks have not been good. Now, what I did hear about Eckler that I didn't know prior is this would be his third contract, and third contracts and running backs in the NFL don't happen very often. When they do, they're not for big money. So if the Chargers believe Eckler is on the downside, which I don't think they're correct in that analysis, I think they need to pay him. And by the way, they're built to win now, but they're not built to win 3 years from now. So they should pay him, get what they can out of Big Mike and Keenan, probably go get a tight end in free agency, and then shore up a little bit. I mean, they restructured Bosa and Khalil Mack, so they want to do something. I just don't know what the something is. So they need to, they need to get their Red Bull. They need to get their 5-hour energy and get back on the clock and figure out what to do.
Yeah, and we'll see what the Kellen Moore situation is there with the Chargers too. Like,
I like that.
What is he going to have his like? You would think sometimes you have a new offense coming in, he'd want to put his thumbprint on that offense with players. And right now, it's like, hey, he may be looking at his roster saying, "I got Keenan Allen to fill that CeeDee Lamb role. I got Gerald Everett to play that Dalton Schultz role, and I also got Big Mike Williams and Josh Palmer, and I'm ready to rock." So I'm genuinely surprised that Eckler could be on the move. But remember, we talked about this was one of the teams that was way over the cap. So they need to start slashing money. Maybe they think that Eckler is someone they can move on from. What does that mean, though, for the running back position for the Chargers? I'll be really interested to see there. All right, AFC East. Now, this division has been looming, waiting for that Aaron Rodgers shoe to finally drop. Aaron Rodgers just tells them, hey, I want you to sign a bunch of freaking Packers players who, by the way, are not even in their primes, but also really overall are not that great. They're good, but they're not great. But I want you to sign these guys because they're my friends. So player empowerment, good for him. Buffalo signed an offensive lineman. The Miami Dolphins brought in Mike White and brought back both starting running backs in Mostert and Wilson. So it sounds like they have their guys back. There were rumors that they were looking at Dalvin Cook, but it sounds like they're going to stick with these guys. The Patriots, I think the biggest takeaway is they traded Jonnu Smith and they lost Jacoby Myers. So, I mean, if you're looking at that I personally like that because that means Hunter Henry's going to be on the field a little more. It's better for fantasy football. We'll see how they feel that Jacoby Myers hole. And then the New York Jets, they did bring in Lazard, but I do think Corey Davis is a name to watch. I think that he'll be someone that could potentially be traded. I could see him going to the Falcons, back with Arthur Smith, maybe even get traded back to the Titans because they need wide receiver depth after they lost Robert Woods. And I do think that Lazard fills a nice role with them on the outside with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson as the number one. But what's your thoughts, Sky, here about the AFC East? Anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, I'm gonna save the Jets for Matt. I can see him just crawling in his own skin over there with the Mercedes Lewis hype. I'll let you go ahead and take that over. Patriots, another season of me not being excited for fantasy. Now it's Bill Belichick. It's the Patriots. They're going to be good enough to be interesting all season. They're going to have a couple upset wins. They'll probably be 500-ish and make a run later. The Bills have been quiet, right? So far, they don't really need a lot of help anyway. So for me, I mean, that leaves the Dolphins, and I'm not a big Tua guy, but outside of him, that team looks pretty sick, dude. The running backs, I mean, I'm a Niner homer. I feel like I'm a realistic Niner homer, but I give shouts out to my boy Heem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. the third. Big fans of both of those guys as human beings, but also just like being basically undrafted free agents, both of them, and just having long-term for running backs, 5+ years is a long-term career. And they've both done well when having the opportunity. So I love that for both of those guys. The name for the Dolphins that hasn't moved yet, to my knowledge, and please guys correct me if I missed something today, Mike Gesicki, I believe, is still kind of in limbo, right? Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I think he's a nice piece for that. And if he moves on, maybe they bring in Dalton Schultz, who knows, but like there's a different move there at tight end. Outside of that, though, the Dolphins look really good to me. Offense, they made some defensive moves too that we don't really talk about on fantasy, but the team overall looks great. Jalen Waddle being healthy for a season, Tyreek, of course, having a career year without Mahomes was unbelievable. So the Bills are the Bills, and they're the top team in the division until they get, placed otherwise. But man, if Tua comes back correct, which I joke about him a lot, but injuries are a serious thing. I mean, I think he's in real trouble personally, but conversation for another time. If they either do something different at quarterback or have a backup or whatever, as long as that quarterback position is solidified for the Dolphins, I think they could straight up be kind of an upset to win the division outright. I don't like the Patriots. The Bills are the Bills, but they've been quiet, and I'll pass up to Matt here for the Jets talk.
No.
Nope. Commercial break.
I mean, right. It's the girl you dated in junior high. You're moving towards the end of your senior year. You're still dating her, but you've been looking over here. You've been looking over there. You did your campus tour, right? You picked your school, and you saw all the chicks on the campus tour, and you don't really want your girlfriend that's currently a junior in high school anymore. I just want it to be over with, right? Let her break up with me. Let's move on. I can't do it anymore, right? He's one of the greatest of all time, but he's a petty diva bitch, and I'm done.
Matt, is there any chance? And I think it's a 0% chance. What do they say in the media? It's a less than 0% or more than 0% chance or whatever that stupid saying is. Is there any way that Aaron pulls all this? Randall Cobb is in the mix. Like, come on, man. Alan Lazard, of course, is a legitimate move we should talk about. But is there any way Aaron pulls all this and doesn't actually pull the trigger on the Jets?
No.
No.
There's no way.
You can't do that. No way.
No, I know we can't do that. I'm just saying.
So the rumor, right, in Packer circles, the rumor is that I believe 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow he's on the
Pat McAfee or something, and yeah.
So
it's I made a joke on Instagram today. I'm like, it's like the LeBron decision back in the day when he went from the Cavs to the Heat, and it was this big thing. It's like that all over again, where Aaron's taking himself totally out of NFL free agency spotlight, and he's making his own spotlight on the show. And of course, I think he'll say what everyone expects him to say, but it just seems so silly.
And I will tell you this. I think it's a 50. I retweeted it today. It's either 53 or $54.5 million hit this year, but it turns into like 90 some odd million if he retires or we release him. The numbers are insane. Don't quote me on the numbers, but it's just incredible for the next 2 years. So what we have to do is admit, we being Green Bay, that it's over and get whatever we can for him and get out from underneath that horrific remaining money on that contract. And Bob and I wrote about it and talked about it on the show a couple of weeks ago. It's just it's time. I love the guy. I loved Brett Favre, but soon after he left, we've got dick pics, and we've got we've got the terrible,
good throwback. Good throwback.
We've got the terrible scandal.
Forgot about the old DPs.
If we could just play football and not try to be petty. Favre was petty for a while. I love both of them. They're both Hall of Fame quarterbacks, first ballot. I get it. But at a certain point, they drafted Jordan Love.
Man.
Either release him or pay him. He's cheap, right? He's cheap as far as NFL starting quarterback. So he's going to be $20 million. They can decide. You give him 1 year. Can the kid play? If he can, then you lock him up. But he's got Dobbs. He's got Christian Watson. I know I'm getting ahead of the NFC North here, but I think for the Jets, I think if we can get Elijah Moore to be traded in that deal, and Lazard, Cobb, Mercedes, and Rodgers, free agency wise, those three go. Rodgers goes in a trade, and we don't have to eat the majority of that contract. That's the way this thing goes down. But Rodgers is testing the Jets right now. He's testing because his claim is that Green Bay never gave him anything to work with. Because I guess Aaron Jones is a POS, and A.J. Dillon is not a good running back, and Jordy Nelson was not a good player. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But he's
I
read
think
a little bit too much of his own press. He's this weird ayahuasca, Nick Cage-esque, strange dude that dates the weird chicks these days, and so I just need it to be over with, right? I need the divorce papers on the kitchen table so
Fair.
that I can sign them.
2 responses, Bob, before we move on here. First of all, I'm about weird chicks and ayahuasca, so I'm just gonna throw that out there. Secondly, I think the Aaron Jones, Jordy Nelson, those kind of comparisons, I think the issue with him would be is those guys grew in the system to become who they were. They weren't brought in as like hired guns that everybody else in the league was making. I think that's Aaron's move. I'm not backing him up for all of his drama, but I think that's a bit more of his argument. Obviously, he had Devontae too, of course, and a lot of the OG guys, Greg Jennings and whatnot. I think the biggest thing for the Jets, I think I'm literally curious right now today. We'll see how the summer envelops and the draft and all this stuff, and if Aaron actually goes there or whatever. I'm actually curious if Garrett Wilson or Allen Lazard would be the true number one heading into week 1. That might sound silly to people. Garrett Wilson is, I think, absolutely fantastic. Should be the number one talent-wise. But we know Aaron has his guys, and Allen Lazard has been his guy when healthy for a long time. And red zone stuff, whatever. We know you used to pepper Devontae down there. Maybe it's Allen Lazard now. And Bob, you've been Allen Lazard guy for a long time and hit last year outside of his injuries. Just quick thought, like, is it crazy to think that maybe Garrett Wilson, assuming Aaron goes there, Garrett Wilson is not the bona fide number one there with Allen Lazard and Aaron Rodgers having history?
No, I think we kind of saw it with Christian Watson a little bit down the stretch last year, that he started favoring him a little more in the second half. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be the guy. I think Allen Lazard is nice. I think Aaron Rodgers was forced into, like, I've talked about this before. I think it annoys the shit out of him that the one team that is going after him is the same team that Brett Favre went to. I think it actually drives him crazy.
Hey, Vikings are up next, baby.
Oh, yeah. But the other thing was the Packers are not going to trade him in the conference. They did not want to do that. So they had to trade him outside the conference. And the Jets were ready to give him everything he wanted. And so Aaron Rodgers like, I still control my own destiny, because this is a way for him to have some control. Because technically, he would have to waive his no trade clause to get traded to the Jets. And he's like, well, I don't want to just go play there by myself. I'm about having a good time now. I want my boys there. So Mercedes, Allen, Cobb, let's party in New York together, like last year or two, whatever the hell it is. But then he's got the thing with the Jets, the better side of the ball might still be the defense. That is something that you can never have. I don't think you could have ever said that about the Packers with Aaron Rodgers there over the last decade.
The year they won the Super Bowl, that defense was off the chart.
Right. Over the last right.
Was that 10? Like, 2010, that's outside of the decade.
Yeah. So yes, that's my point. So it's just like, I think that there's a lot of, I think the Jets, the other pieces now, if you put Allen Lazard there, now listen, you could have made an argument that I honestly think Corey Davis is perfectly fine. Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. Now, does the coaching staff love Elijah Moore again? Because the second half of the season, it looked like he was out in the doghouse, and he looked good. And so I don't know. So I don't know if he's going to be a trade. Plus, we know the Packers hate trades. They don't like getting receivers. They like drafting them in the second round. So we know, Matt, maybe this year you'll get another receiver. All right, let's move on to the AFC.
And for the record, I took a note that 13 years is more than a decade. So lesson learned.
That's good.
That's correct.
At AFC North, listen, we're learning something new every day. We're learning that the decades are just 10 years, not 13. AFC North is going to be quick and easy, but I do want to talk about what teams haven't done. Lamar Jackson still doesn't have a long-term contract. Is that preventing them from going out and getting receivers? They have Todd Monken, people. Todd Monken, who is I love him. I'm excited for him, but the Baltimore Ravens need to change their entire offense with Todd Monken to get receivers, and they're not doing it right now because they're on hold with Lamar Jackson. So the Cincinnati Bengals lose Samaje Perine. What does that mean for Joe Mixon? Can he finally earn third downs in this offense? Hayden Hurst, still a free agent, hasn't been re-signed by the team. Cleveland hasn't done anything. Kareem Hunt, still a free agent, could be gone. Jerome Ford is a deeper name that people have been talking about. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of, once again, just continuity, same coach, same offensive line. Everything is the same. They re-signed, they signed an offensive guard, but that is it. They have the same skill position guys because after their trade of Chase Claypool last year. So, Matt, you first, man. What's your thoughts about the AFC North? Anything stand out to you?
Nick Chubb's still probably the best running back in the division. Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the division. The rest it's the same fucking division, right? It's just boring. And what I would like to see, honestly, right, shake it up a little bit, is I would like to see the Colts offer that number 1 pick that they have, not first overall, but their first, which I believe is 4. Trade that, some other package, maybe and to Baltimore and get Lamar the contract he needs. The Colts have not figured out free agency very well as quarterbacks go. The last 2 have been utter failures. And then I actually heard one of these analysts online, not like us, right? One of these just talking heads, not the smart guys like us, that said, oh, Phillip Rivers was a bust. Was he? Or did he only play 1 year? I don't think he was a bust. I think he was pretty good. But Wentz and et cetera, Matt Ryan, et cetera, they were not good. But I'd love to see the Colts just say, fuck it, we're going all in. We're going to trade for Lamar Jackson. We're going to treat him the way he should be treated. I think Paris Campbell walks unless they get Lamar Jackson. But I think we could have the season we need from number 11 in Indianapolis that you guys hate. But I would draft Michael Pittman again if he got Lamar Jackson.
I like Michael Pittman a lot as an individual. I think he needs help. I think he's Mike Evans potentially, but he's not a burner. He's not a big playmaker himself, but I don't want to digress too far here, but I like Michael Pittman. I just think the situation didn't unravel the way that it should have. Just want to throw out a couple of names here. I think you guys have gone through the division quite well with the names. First of all, flashing back really quick to the Packer talk, we brought the Vikings. I can't wait to talk about Nick Mullins getting re-signed in Minnesota. That's going to be massive. Additionally, let's cover some of the wide receivers per this podcast still available on the open market unless anything's changed during the show. Juju, available. DJ Chark, Paris Campbell, Adam Thielen, Mecole Hardman, Richie James, Julio Jones, Marvin Jones, a lot of deeper names. Odell Beckham, Robert Woods, Marquise Goodwin, Damiere Byrd. There's not a lot of super exciting names to even bring to Baltimore at this point, assuming the Ravens figure this out and lock it up. So we know what Lamar can do pretty much by himself. I mean, Mark Andrews is great. I'm really excited to see what the young talent has to do in Baltimore, but the offense, Bob's right. I mean, they're going to have to basically change what they've been doing Lamar's whole career so far to benefit him as a passer, which I've always said Lamar's a better passer skill-wise than he gets credit for because he's such an elite runner and he doesn't pass enough to make a big difference. But every year, Dolphins, I think twice now, he's good for 350 and 5 touchdowns when they let him throw the ball. At Louisville, he won the Heisman because he was an incredible passer on top of his running, but they haven't really let him do that. I think Todd Monken's going to be a lot of fun, but unfortunately, I don't see a lot of, unless they make a splash in a trade somehow, I don't see a lot of Juju, possession guy. DJ Chark, hit or miss, injury history. Adam Thielen, Paris Campbell, injury history. Richie James, Julio Jones, Marvin Jones. Those guys are just kind of past their primes or whatever. Richie James, unproven. I'm a little bit concerned overall about what they can even service Lamar now. And not that Alan Lazard and Jacoby Myers were top of the food chain overall, but those names are off the list now for them to even bring it in. So I'm a little bit concerned. I'm really interested to see what the Browns end up being with, say what you want about Deshaun Watson, whatever. On the field, he was horrendous at the end of the season last year when he played. To Bob and Matt's credit, I'm a Amari Cooper fader every year. He played exceptionally well with trash. We'll see how that goes again this year. And then I don't think Kareem Hunt stays there, but Dearness Johnson is also a free agent too. So they just open the backfield and let Nick Chubb get his 30 carries like Derrick Henry to be the number 1 rusher. So we'll see what happens, but a really interesting division. But I agree. We haven't even talked about the Steelers. They've been quiet as well, but I think they have some young talent. And Mike Tomlin, I think, is kind of forever underrated with what he's had to deal with over the last handful of years, and still puts out a quality football team every single season.
Breaking news: David Montgomery has signed with the Lions.
There goes all my Jamal Williams shares out the door. You know what that means? I'm going to call it right now. That means that DeAndre Swift is getting traded.
Oh man,
I don't know. I don't know why you would pick. There it is. Thank you. Bring it back.
Breaking news.
I don't know why you would trade like just physiologically. I don't know why schematically you would trade, if this happens, DeAndre Swift and his talent for Jamal Williams and David Montgomery. But I mean, it's in division. They see this kid all the time. But I'll tell you what, man, my hype is already high on Khalil Herbert. But I just got more stoked, assuming he's healthy coming back.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's cover the last AFC division on today's show. It's the AFC South. Let's talk quickly about the Houston Texans. Have been busy doing a lot of little things. They got Robert Woods to come in, Noah Brown, so they have them behind Brandon Cooks. Case Keenum is there to hold down the fort with Davis Mills and whoever the hell they draft in the first round. Brought in some offensive line help with Shaq Mason. Indianapolis Colts, the biggest thing they've done really is on the defensive side, trading Gilmore and also releasing Matt Ryan. I mean, this team is 100% going to have to go get a quarterback at some point. I agree 100%. I think that Shane Steichen would be an awesome fit with Lamar Jackson after what he's done with Jalen Hurts. I would love that be a trade. I don't see that happening, but Matt Ryan's officially gone. Jacksonville, the biggest thing they really did was bring back Evan Ingram, which we got to like for fantasy football. And the Tennessee Titans, when you're looking at this team, they had to get under the cap. They did. They released Robert Woods. They released Taylor Lewan. They lost Nate Davis. Their offensive line is completely gone. The 5 starters from the 2,000-yard rushing season just a couple years ago with Derrick Henry, all 5 are gone. Ben Jones, gone. Everybody's gone. So just like a complete overhaul on this team. So it's interesting to see what the direction is for this Titans offense, because it's Derrick Henry, it's Treylon Burks, and it's Ryan Tannehill, and we'll see where it goes from there. But any thoughts, Matt, about the AFC South before we close the show?
Only the fact that this division may be more boring than the
AFC North.
Right? Somebody's going to make the playoffs from this division, and I could give a shit which one it does, because they're not going to go anywhere. Now, what interests me is Derrick Henry going to be on the move? Right? Are they in full rebuild mode? Well, they can't be.
Chicago Bears? Maybe,
but they still have Tannehill, and I think they owe him $39.5. So unless they're going to release him and take that massive cap hit, which they won't because they need an NFL quarterback, I don't know that they're going to find suitors for Henry, a dude with that much wear and tear on him so far. He's still a stud, right? King Henry for a reason. I just don't know that the trade market is going to be huge. Now with Montgomery moving and Penny moving, and maybe like Bob mentioned, Dalvin Cook could maybe go somewhere.
Kareem should too.
What are we going to do? I don't know. The Rams and Packers can't afford them. The Packers don't need them. The Rams do, but they have no money. They have no draft capital, and they maybe are resigned to Cam Akers. Who knows? So I don't know. I thought at one point, and Bob, you and I talked about this, I said the other landing spot I saw for Aaron Rodgers was Carolina, because he couldn't come back to haunt Green Bay by going to Carolina. And then Carolina did the unthinkable.
The Red Rifle, right?
Yeah. No, they
got Andy Dalton. Yeah. But
they made that massive trade with Chicago.
Yeah, right.
And now I read something that said Matt Corral and a couple of picks are on the market. I don't know who's going to go out and get Matt Corral. If Carolina's willing to get rid of Matt Corral, means he can't be really that good.
Well, it's a new coaching staff, right? I mean, Frank Wright's coming in there, and he's going to do his thing. He's going to want his guys. Yeah. Matt Corral is like a mid-round pick quarterback, and he might have had a different grade on him. And he's like, I don't even want this guy, and he's not my future. So they have the first pick. Is there a consensus among you guys who the first quarterback's going to be? Is it Young?
Yeah, either from Alabama or Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, it will be one of those two guys.
It can't be Anthony Richardson.
Dude, Zach Wilson got drafted second. Okay. The hype of what a combine can do. My boy Trey Lance. All right. I'm not saying Mac Jones is unbelievable. Okay. But I mean, what a combine can do. And we're not even like in the season yet. Like when we get to, in the next 6 weeks to the draft, a lot can change, man. This Anthony Richards hype is ridiculous. And when you start throwing around prime Cam Newton, taller than George Kittle, bigger hands than DeAndre Hopkins, jumps higher than, whoever, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised. I got to be honest with you, man.
I was hoping he would be Mitch Trubisky 2.0. I was hoping the Bears would draft him, and then he would just circle the drain for 3 years, 4 years.
I mean, I wish the kid well. I have no reason to hate on the kid. I just think that the situation builds like that. Those other two kids are from massive schools with big time pedigree. Like, Trey Lance showed up on the scene for 1 season. Zach Wilson showed on the scene for 1 season, and they had a good combine. And Anthony Richards has done the same thing with the unspeakable intangibles that you can't teach, which is height and body type and all this other shit that scouts care about. And he's a hell of an athlete, which we know at the quarterback position matters more now than it ever has.
And if you're going to talk pure athleticism, why not dial the 3 of us up? Amen.
That's literally what I was thinking.
I will say this, though. I think the biggest thing that I noticed last year was they had all these quarterbacks going in the first round, and then none of them went in the top 10, and Pickett was the only one in the first round. Maybe that's different with Stroud and Young. I get that. But Richardson seems like a kind of guy where Malik Willis had all this conversation last year, and he went all the way in the third round or whatever it was. So I do think he would be a nice fit. If Shane Steichen thinks that Jalen Hurts type of quarterback is good for his system, then Anthony Richardson would be awesome. He could be a mobile quarterback. But we've seen that just because he's an athlete, like Malik Willis, his first year was a disaster. Like he was completing like 90 yards at the best. But anybody in this division, like I think like Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods and having the Texans are kind of now going to try to become like the San Francisco 49ers with, them coming down there, probably drafting a quarterback, most likely to go with Case Keenum and Davis Mills. But you have Woods, you have Cooks there now. Okay, there's something there a little bit. But I guess overall from this, is there anybody in this division outside of the main guys like Derrick Henry? The Jacksonville Jaguars have Calvin Ridley coming back, which is a huge one. Anything stand out from free agency?
I mean, not really on free agency per se. There's still a couple names that could land somewhere. But Evan Ingram has been kind of a thorn in our side in fantasy football, but he was franchise tagged, so he'll be back. I think the big thing for me, like Jacksonville, I mean, I agree with Matt-ish that the AFC is so top heavy, not top heavy per se, but the teams at the top are so good. The Bengals, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Chiefs, whatever. They're so good that I think like the wild card teams are just going to get smoked kind of regardless. But for about 3.5 quarters in the playoffs, the Jags gave the Chiefs a ball game at least. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think the Jags are a year or two away. The Texans are in trouble, but DeMeco Ryans, obviously I watched him very closely as the Niners defensive guy. Robert Saleh went out from under Shanahan as a defensive coordinator to the Jets, turned the team around in a season, right? Just mentality-wise, if nothing else. Same thing happened with Mike McDaniel when he went to the Dolphins. Okay. I think the same thing's going to happen with the Texans. They may only win 5 games or something, but mentality-wise for the next couple of seasons, I think that could really change the division. Calvin Ridley coming back is going to be massive. And assuming Travis Etienne's healthy, which he really wasn't all of last season, I really think the Jaguars could make some smoke. And Tennessee has been good enough with Derrick Henry and coaching to always be at the top of the division, and the Colts come and go with their quarterback. But the Jaguars feel like the most solidified team overall, and I think they'll just rise above the top unless the Colts make a splash at quarterback, and obviously Jonathan Taylor stays healthy.
Matt, any final thoughts? Any division, feel free. Any AFC division we cover today?
No, just please text me once. I'm not checking the internet. I don't know what Twitter and Xbox and Juice Box and Jelly Roll. Do
you do MySpace still, though?
I just want it to be over with. So please, one of you text me when the news hits. I don't need Please just end it, right?
Matt, what I'd recommend is just tonight before you go to bed, right? Just get on to Ask Jeeves, and you can just get like an update real quick, so at least you're aware when you wake up in the morning.
I've been hitting the paper clip and asking him where Rodgers is going. The paper clip doesn't know.
Perfect.
I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up on your Hotmail. Whatever you got. Whatever you need. It's AOL Instant Messenger. You got it. We'll take care of you here.
The kids watching are like, "What are these old ass dudes talking about?"
Well, the funny thing is, I sent all three of you, Derek, the third one. You guys all got an AOL disc from me. Have you used it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. My floppy disk drive is clean.
Yeah,
it's good to go.
I'm going to just say one last thing. I think Treylon Burks, because of the Titans situation, is probably one of the bigger winners so far because, he's going to be their alpha.
There's nobody else there.
There's no one else there. So I think that when I'm thinking just from a fantasy football perspective, sometimes we get in these situations where the teams have a bunch of okay talent, but they all monopolize each other. So Treylon Burks being in a situation where it's not his fault they completely decimated the team around him. He's going to get plenty of looks. And the other thing too, I want to talk about the Jags, Calvin Ridley. You're replacing Marvin Jones with Calvin Ridley in his prime. That's a huge upgrade. So the Jags were a wild card team they weren't a wild card team. They won the division, but the point is you could easily see them winning 3 more games just from having that alpha number 1. Now you got Christian Kirk as the number 2 and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram. That offense could explode, especially going into year 2. Why? The year 2 leap, Sky. The year 2 leap, buddy. That's what we talk about for fantasy football. We're all in on the Jags. All right, that's all we got for today. All right, Matt.
What I'm hearing is you're betting on Calvin Ridley. I'll see myself out.
Oh, get it? Betting on Calvin Ridley?
I don't want to get the man in trouble. Okay, so let's.
He just can't. He just can't bet on himself. He can't bet on himself.
All right, that's all we got for today. So it shows 46 minutes of just rambling nonsense, covering the AFC. Yes, we dabbled a little bit in the NFC, but come back later this week. We'll talk about all the NFC moves. We'll probably have more to talk about at that time as well. Again, I want to thank my 2 co-hosts today, Matthew Styles. You can follow him at Styles08 on Twitter, and Sky Gawasco. Just follow him at Sky Gawasco. Before you go, make sure you follow us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. And, of course, make sure you jump over to Razzball.com and also follow this guy at Bobby Lamarco. We are out of here.
Go Jayhawks.